Welcome to Casting Friendship Podcast, a Dungeons and Dragons and Feelings podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Melanie.
Together we are KaraMel. And today we are going to talk about death in Dungeons and Dragons.
I'd like to cast Friends.
Roll for charisma. Melanie, have you ever died in a D&D campaign?
Okay, so I've never died in a D&D campaign, like when I had like an ongoing storyline. The only time I've ever died is when I was playing those old school Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that were extremely grindy, and you have 3 characters because you're going into a dungeon crawl and you're probably gonna die. And I definitely did die in those, but I've never had a significant death in a campaign. Have you ever died? Have you been close to dying before?
No, I don't think I have. I'm trying to think. The longest running campaign that I was in was my brother's, where I was a paladin. So I don't think, and I was playing her a bit more cautiously. So no, I don't think I've even been like close to dying. I think the closest brush I've had to death in a D&D campaign, or like a meaningful death in a D&D campaign, was almost killing Zada like multiple times throughout Dion Rising. And that was traumatic enough.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, as a DM, have you ever had to deal with a player character dying?
Not yet. Knock on wood. Mind you, I am a little bit known for pulling my punches. I don't want to kill a character, especially a player character, without it being like meaningful. So I have accidentally like overbalanced an encounter and obviously come close to killing a character, but I was like, narratively, that payoff is such a bummer. So I'm gonna pull a punch or two.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question that I had for you as a DM, because I was kind of curious, like looking behind the curtain, how you would let that happen, or if it would just be up to chance, or what would happen in a situation, in the inevitable situation. I feel like this is inevitable in our Dion Rising campaign, that I feel like Zada is gonna get close to dying. So
Yeah.
as he has already.
Yeah. When I say that I will pull my punches, I'm like, but I can only do so much. Like, if your character is going to keep running into the jaws of death, I'm going to have to close them eventually. Like, at that point, that's kind of out of my hands, man. So yeah, I feel like in Dion Rising, it is an inevitability that something terrible could happen.
Yeah. Tell me about your philosophy with death in your campaigns and allowing characters to die.
It depends a lot on the kind of campaign that I'm running and like the group that I'm playing with. So like there's a huge difference between how I'm DMing for Dion Rising, which is a very character and story heavy way of playing, and like very role play heavy and very like emotionally charged. Or like emotionally loaded, I guess, for a lot of the players. And I learned that like purposefully going into it, what we wanted that to look like and what everybody was comfortable with. But like in my home games, where the player characters are like Jackson McGee from PP, like those characters are a little more likely to die because a lot less emotional investment came from the players.
Yeah. Johnson from Omaha.
Exactly. So it certainly depends on the group. With a group like Dion Rising, I'm not ever gonna say death isn't a possibility, because this is a game that you can die, and that is what makes combat difficult and scary, and doesn't make people just run around constantly getting into fights willy-nilly. So knowing that you can die is important in all of my campaigns, and that making foolish choices could lead to death, or sometimes a roll of the dice could lead to death. I'm gonna do my best not to have it be like at the hands of just like a random peasant with a stick, but but it could still happen. and I think that that's necessary for just like the weight of the game that you're playing. You want it to be challenging and difficult no matter what, right? So death is always on the table, but how willing I'm going to use it randomly is a different story, I think.
Yeah, I think that having death as a possibility, a very real possibility, is what gives the game meaning. I think your actions have to have stakes, and I think without death, I feel like our actions are not as meaningful. So I think it is important to have death as a possibility. I think I personally would just want it to happen if it's gonna happen. But yeah, I can understand. I feel like that's such a hard balance
Yeah,
when you're the DM.
it can be like just straight up talking about the Zada of it all. Because that's just like a very recent example, really. I've had other players be like that, and I've had to be like, hey, man, like if I just have to like clear up with you, like it's been 2 or 3 instances of you running back onto the field of battle with only a few HP. There's only so much I'm going to keep holding back, and are you okay with dying? Like it's really just kind of a check-in with individual characters when it's necessary, when I start to feel like there's a very real possibility that their character's going to die, and how okay are they with that? How ready are they to like make a secondary character, have a backup character? Because that's also something, I don't ever want to like kill a player and have them feel like they need to leave the table forever or leave the game forever. That's like a DM's worst nightmare. Or like have me not understand that they were taking risks for a different reason, or they didn't think about the possibility of death, or they thought they were going to get away with a good dice roll or something. So I just have to always make sure that I'm aware of the individual person and checking in off the table and saying, hey, are you okay if this keeps going this way? Because if you're cool with that, I'm going to do it. Or it is going to be much more on the table going forward.
Yeah, have you had that talk with Royal?
I haven't yet, but I'm gonna.
Oh my goodness. I just seeing how things have been going, it just has to come up. I don't know. I feel like in dying is just inevitable.
Yeah.
Unless there's a strong change in character.
Yeah, and frankly, it could be like it may not even be Zada who bites the bullet for something like that. Like Killian is constantly at death's door. It seems like 2 wrong hits against Maraway could kill him at this point. So it's always a risk for everybody. But there does come a point where I'm like, oh, I have to actually have an individual conversation with this person just to make sure and keep it spicy for the rest of the group.
Yeah. So okay, that's an interesting question because. Do you think talking about character death should be part of like a session 0?
Yeah, and for me, it usually is. Maybe not so directly. Maybe I should start being more direct about it and explicit about that being a possibility, like even with the whole table or individually, because I do use a lot of safety tools at the beginning of a campaign, even just at the very least a Google survey, where I just ask like, hey, what are your like major triggers? What are things you wouldn't be okay with happening to your character? Here's my own boundary stuff I'm not going to put in the game. So if you're expecting this stuff, or if you're trying to do that stuff as a PC, that's not going to work with me. I will do what I can to narrate the story away from that. So I do use a lot of safety tools like that. I'm trying to think of if I ever ask specifically the death question. I think I kind of wrap it up with like general, what would you not be okay with? And hope that they know that means, usually people who have come to a D&D table know that it's a game where you have a certain number of health and then you die. So,
yeah.
But maybe I should start asking more explicitly. What do you think? Have you been in a game where a DM asked you if you were okay with your character dying?
I haven't been in a game like that, but I've been in campaigns where I've seen other characters die, so I do know that the other group that I play in, that death is possible, and it's really more of just the luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
So if it just happens, I know my friend as a DM would not stop that from happening.
Yeah, because like a game at home is very different than a game we're playing on Twitch, right? Like it truly is a game where the dice rolls really, really, really matter. And I'm not saying they don't matter in Dion Rising, but there's a little less I'll do at a private home game table than I'm willing to do to you guys who have put so much sweat and effort into it.
Yeah.
But things do get more serious. I think that it's just kind of finding the balance of like when to turn up the dial on how easily death can happen. Because, you know, like all like good stories and like good video games, you level up, right? And so do the bosses, and so do the antagonists. And so knowing when to turn up the dial and how to show your party that the dial has been turned up and that things are getting harder, and you know, we're not chasing shitty kitties anymore. That's actually kind of more of the balance, because then you can really judge like in the moment how they're going to react when things get really serious at a moment's notice. That's exciting. And if you do that right, I think that could be just as good to find out about, to learn what your party is okay with death looking like in the game. And that can be something like killing off an NPC that they love or something.
Have you had situations where an NPC was killed off and your PCs reacted strongly to it?
Yes. I don't know if strongly is the word. I have one group who play extremely strategically, and
Okay. Like min-maxing?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And it's a campaign that I half homebrewed, and like I'm half using other pre-planned adventures, kind of Frankensteining things together. But I made it so that it's a very difficult campaign, because I knew that they were strategizers and that they were going to try and outthink me at every turn, and that they were going to min-max. And so it's definitely a much more combat heavy, much more challenging, a lot more like long-term kind of puzzle things where they have to really figure out specific creative solutions. It's kind of a serious game that they play. They play to win D&D, which is fun. It's a different kind of way to play.
Funny.
Yeah. And so with that group, I planned an NPC death within the first like 10 times we played. And but I feel like that's cheating as an answer. Like I didn't have to use it creatively. That was like part of the story. I knew they were gonna love him. They did. And it was the turning point of the adventure. Like he had to die. He always had to die, and they always had to care enough to move on to the next part of the adventure. Because they're also a bunch of loose cannons. Like, I cannot predict what this group is going to do ever, but luckily, I was like, they're going to love this NPC, and I'm going to make them love him. And it was like, they did. They liked him a lot. He sold them a hammer, and that was it. It was done.
That is so funny. I did get the sense that Mjolnir was close to dying. I feel like that would have been...
He was really close to dying, and I was ready to kill him. At that moment, I was like, oh, this is great. Because this is maybe the one thing that will set Zada on a certain path. I was like, I'm going to break Zada this time. I'm going to let Mjolnir die.
That's going to be the carrot and the stick.
Keeping this donkey alive, this mule. Yeah, like, death can be used very creatively to motivate a party. And I feel like that's just, like, DMing 101. Like, kill their favorite NPC. That's just game, movie, anything.
Oh, no.
Kill the dog if you have to.
Oh, no.
Yep. It's just a good if you have a party who's not just motivated by getting coin and killing monsters.
Yeah.
You just gotta find something they love and destroy it. And make sure they know that your antagonist is the one that killed it. It works.
So, okay, if you were playing in a campaign, how would you feel about your character dying? Like, what would you let happen, or what would you be okay with?
I love my characters. The way I DM for Dion Rising, that's how I want to like play. Like when I say like, you know, one of my parties is very combat heavy and one's very strategic. Dion Rising, I always say, is like very character and story driven, and that's kind of how I am as a player. So I feel like I'm fully okay with my PC dying because I have so many player characters that I want to play. I'd be fine with going to a backup as long as their death has like a little bit of meaning, or like is a little bit of a, even if it's just like a motivating fact, like even if that's the player character or the NPC that the party loves and they will now be out for vengeance for me, that'd be great. That'd be so awesome. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm okay with dying if it means the party is gonna finally get like a little bit of heat under their pants or something.
Yeah, and that's how Zada turns full evil.
Yes, like that would be fantastic. I would not mind a death like that. That's good storytelling, baby. I think, and I'd be okay with it being gruesome. Like, torture me to death. I don't care. Like, I'm pretty,
Mhm.
I'm pretty okay with my character dying in a very dramatic way. What I don't
Yeah.
want is like a really boring character death. Like, I poop myself after being poisoned to death. That would
Oh
suck.
my gosh.
But I feel like you'd have to be a really mean DM to kill someone in a really boring way. So,
I think, yeah, I think my tolerance for death in game must be higher than the other players because I feel like I would obviously like to have a meaningful death for Serafina if it ever came to that. But also, if that's just what happened and she gets killed by being poisoned, then that's just what happens to her. And maybe that's just speaks to who I am as a person, but I think a meaningless death, I feel like that's very sad and beautiful too.
oh yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. For just the fact of life that people die,
Yeah, some people just
sometimes for no
die
good
and then
reason.
it's just a whimper and you fade away.
Wow. Wow, that would be the meanest way I could kill Zada.
Not in the glory of battle,
No.
but just oh, Oregon Trail, you died of dysentery.
You drank water that had a parasite in it like 4 years ago. But you as Melanie and you playing Serafina, you'd be okay with a whimper of a death.
I think if that's the way things like shake out in the game, I think that's the way I want it to be. I think it's because I'm a very risk averse person in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in Dungeons and Dragons, I usually I'm more risky as a player. Like for example, when you level up to get your health points, I will always choose to roll. And like I know we did something different for our characters, but usually I roll my stats
No,
for just random stats.
just the
Yeah.
chance. You love
Yeah, exactly.
the lack of control a little bit.
Exactly. Within Dungeons and Dragons
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I'm very controlled in most parts of my life. I'm very careful.
That makes a lot of sense because I'm kind of the opposite. Like I'm pretty I'm not saying I'm careless, but I guess if I was on a spectrum from careful to careless, I'd be
Mhm.
much closer to careless in real life. I'm pretty
Mhm.
blasé about
Yeah.
everything. But in D&D, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep everything in line. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think I think just the randomness is what makes it fun. I think the stakes
yeah,
are what makes it fun. I think the possibility of death gives things meaning, just like in real life. I think death gives our lives meaning. So I think I like that aspect of it,
yeah.
where yeah, Serafina can die of dysentery if that's what it comes to. We're just traveling.
Oh man, I just remembered. So I haven't had my character die, but in the first campaign I ever played, the one where I'm the ASMR, my brother's campaign that he DMs, my
Mhm.
now husband played in it with me the whole time. And his character, we all kind of like abandoned him sort of. We were like doing a dungeon crawl and we didn't abandon him. We just like we my sister's in that campaign too, and her little dwarf boy character ran away to go do some troublesome things because she literally plays a 12-year-old boy. And
Yeah.
so me and the other player chased after her, thinking like William's character is fine, he's got this, like he's
Yeah.
not gonna die. And he immediately goes and touches. He's a rogue, of course, so he goes and touches like a beer keg or something, and it's a mimic, and he
Oh
dies
my
because none of us are
god.
there to fight it with him. It almost
Oh my
insta kills
god.
him, and so then we refused to accept that he was dead because it was only like the fourth time we had played,
Oh my god.
and so we dragged around his dead body in like a sled that we built, and for my brother was kind enough to like make us a small like side quest arc where we could go and find like a specific mage who's like a necrophage and could bring him back. And so for like 8 episodes then, or I call them 8 sessions then, we just dragged around his dead body trying to do this quest for this mage so that we could bring him back
So
to life.
funny.
And the whole time my husband was like, in between games, he was just like, guys, just let me die. Let him be dead. We were like,
Let me
no,
have my peace.
we wouldn't. We loved him too much. We were just like, we refused to give up on him. And my poor brother, he had to like, he pivoted. He was just like, okay, I guess that's what they're going to do now. And he let us. But it took ages. But we brought him back and he's great now.
He's still kicking.
Still kicking. We will not let him die. We've made that very clear.
Okay. That brings me to a question that I have about Dion Rising.
Mhm.
So let's say someone does die. Is there an afterlife? Like, is there a way to bring someone back? Or I guess those are two separate questions. Number one, is there an afterlife in Dion Rising? And number two, is there a way to bring someone back from the dead? Just like from your story.
Very complicated answer for Dion, but the short and long of it is like, yes, there's an afterlife. That looks different depending on, I guess sort of the word would be like what religion or like what who they follow, because there's lots and lots of different like types of deities or like quasi deities. There's, you guys just came back from the hells, so there's dead people in the hells who still exist there. And in D&D in general, I think that there's not a lot of ways to bring someone back, but there are ways. There's
Okay, so you can pull someone back from the afterlife.
yes, but what that looks like, you know, just like everything, it could be a blessing and a curse kind of thing, depending on how it's done.
Can you give us more information about that?
No, I cannot, because it'll spoil everything.
Because we're gonna need this when Sana dies.
Yeah, right. I can't give you the roadmap on casting friendship. We can talk about it after that happens. We'll find out how many other Knights of D20 actually listen to this podcast by spoiling the whole campaign. Yeah, no, I can't give you any more details, but yes, it is possible. Is it easy? Certainly not.
So have you thought about this? So like, if Zada does die, where would he go? And so you mentioned there's multiple deities.
Mm-hmm.
Are there multiple afterlife places that people can go?
Yeah, and it all depends on like who your deity is. Some of like, are they a celestial, in which case you're gonna go to a specific place if it's a celestial, but there are different sort of, I guess, afterlives for even between the celestials. So it's not like there's just a celestial heaven. It's not like every tiefling and every warlock with a pact with the devil would necessarily go to the hells. So it kind of depends on the person's choices throughout their life, what their afterlife looks like. There's lots of different possibilities.
Wow, I feel like Seraphina should really think about her afterlife experience. And
yeah, I wonder what Seraphina's current relationship with death is. And has she ever had to ponder her own mortality before?
I don't think so. I think she's too busy running around.
I mean, I didn't ponder my own mortality until I was like 29, so.
Really?
I don't think I did, but I don't think it was a scary thing until I was 29.
Oh my goodness, that is so insane to me, because I have been, okay, my number one fear is death. So my fear of death is, I have noticed my fear of death is much stronger than the average person's. I don't know why everyone isn't freaking out about dying and their own mortality. And I've been freaking out about it since I was a very, very small child.
That sounds like an incredibly anxious way to live. I'm very sorry. That sounds so scary.
It's just, I don't know what it is, but as a child, I think I still do. As a child, I used to have these crazy panic attacks about death. And even now, maybe about once or twice a month, do you know there's this cycle of sleep, this like mode of sleep between like awake and like REM sleep, you have that like little like
Yeah.
there's cycles of REM sleep.
Yeah.
There's one where you're like not dreaming, but you're like about to fall asleep. Sometimes in those in between moments, I will like wake up in like a panic of my own
Oh,
mortality.
oh no.
It's really serious.
Wow. Can I ask, have you had therapy about this?
I haven't had therapy, but I can tell you the way that I'm managing and dealing with it.
Please, I've got to
Um,
know because I've had anxiety, but not specifically based around death and mortality. Please tell me how
yeah,
you manage.
I'm really not an anxious person. I'm not really a neurotic person. I just have an extremely intense fear of death and my own mortality. The way that I've been managing is I've structured my life around my death. Like almost everything that I do is in preparation for my death. So I really try to think about what's important to me, what is the life experience that I want, what I want to do with my life. So I try to live extremely purposefully. Have you ever heard of a memento mori?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
I love memento mori. Like I love the art, and actually, I have a memento mori, which is a ring. It's a skull ring that I wear all the time to remind myself every day and just as much as possible that like the time that I have is very precious and that it will all be gone and I'm going to die one day. And I just remind myself as much as possible that I will die. And I try to think about it
The Wow.
and just focus my life so I live with direction and purpose and not just waste my time.
That sound like that I think that's beautiful. It's so not the way my brain works. That's crazy. It sounds so I know that the way you're describing it is not this, but this is how I interpret it. It sounds so high pressure and high stakes. Like every decision you make needs to be so purposeful and that's so the opposite of the way my brain works. Like I'm very much only functioning on like everything's kind of chaos. It's incredible that we're alive at all.
That's so beautiful.
It's very different. And that like I kind of live off this like nothing really matters where it sounds like you are also telling
Mm.
yourself we're all going to die. I'm thinking like we're all going to die, nothing really matters. Of course things matter.
Mm.
But typically I tell myself like I can calm myself down from sort of anxiety by saying like there's only so much damage I can do in a day to myself or in the world or and I try and like count the net goods that I do, but I remember that like I'm only a small little person here for a blip of time kind of thing. I don't know, that's where I feel comfortable. But it sounds like you feel comfortable in knowing that everything matters and that you will be dead and that you need to do the most as opposed to the least, which is probably the
Well,
healthier way to live.
so what I'm hearing from you is kind of like the phrase like, "Oh, this too shall pass." Like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
it's okay. Like this is we're gonna get through this. I'll make it through." Kind of like that mentality.
Yeah, very much that, which feels like a place of privilege to live in, to just be like, oh, nothing's that bad. It's not quite that. It's that, like, things are bad. Control what
Mhm.
you can control, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to gain some perspective. But it sounds like you're gaining
Yes.
perspective by looking so big picture, by saying, like, everything is important and I need to accomplish the things I can so that it does matter.
Yeah, I think it's just I would describe it as extreme prioritization
Mm.
where I know what's important to me, the things that I want to get done. And by focusing on that, I try to de emphasize other things in my life that are not really contributing to that. And that's how I try to stay focused. And that's how I try to extract my happiness so that when I get closer to the end of my life, I don't have regrets in how I spent my very, very limited time
Hmm.
here on Earth. I do feel very privileged to be alive and to have these wonderful experiences. I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. That's where I can agree. I think we're both having the
Yeah.
same general thoughts about life, but with two just slightly different flavors.
Yeah, I think the time after we die is going to be very similar to the time before that we're born. And I think it's really beautiful that, we're part of the universe and we just return to the previous state that
Yep.
we were from.
Yep. That's what I
Yeah.
like too. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Where I find peace and comfort. I'm like, no, it's just like really, really, really cool that we're here. Do you ever think about it? That we have this like higher
Yeah.
level of functioning to where we can talk about our feelings and play silly little games and cry and laugh and kiss and smack each other. Ugh. We're just silly little people running around for just this little blip of time. It's good. It's not too
Yeah.
bad.
It's just this strange blip. And I wanna make the most of it and kind of just like my feelings about death and Dungeons and Dragons. I think like the fact that I'm going to die makes me cherish it so much because I know that it's an extremely limited resource and time is the most precious resource of all.
Truth. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what does scare me about death?
Yeah, tell me.
I don't know what media I saw to give me this specific part of death that I fear, but I don't know. I feel like I've seen something because I don't think I just made this up where like the
Mhm.
moment of death, like your brain keeps going and it can feel like you see it in like shows and movies like it's like they live a whole like extra days or years of time in their
Mhm.
own head. They just picture their brain projects out what life would be like if they weren't dying in this instant.
Yes.
And that like we
Yes.
know like and that also like I feel like I've seen studies or something, I don't know, where they see like a spike in brain activity or even like when a dementia patient suddenly remembers everything on the
Mhm.
last day of their life or just the way the brain reacts to dying and the amount of
Yeah.
electricity that spikes at that moment or in that last few hours or whatever it is. That scares the shit out of me. Imagining that I could just be dead, but be my brain is telling me a whole nother life's worth of lies or stories or the brain. I think the brain scares me more than death.
Yeah.
I think my own mental health scares me more than the idea of death. Nothing is nothing, but my brain is doing a lot all the time, and it scares me
Yeah.
the possibilities of what the human imagination can do.
100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think about that all the time. um, when I have really crazy, vivid dreams, very often, because I think about death so often, I will wake up and think, wow, what happens if that was my death? My final thought.
Yeah,
This really weird, intense dream I had, and I thought it was real in those final moments.
yeah, yep, yep. I'm like, is this really what I would do?
Complete random nonsense.
Ah. Yeah, that freaks me out. I don't want to know what it's gonna be like in the last moments. And
Yeah, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that one theory as to why we have that is it's your brain searching for
a way
it's
to
like a
live.
trauma response, trying to help save like they're trying to think of like ways to save you or like try to run
Yeah,
through like your memories about like what you can do in this moment because your
yeah. It's
brain
like
is just panicking.
literally like flipping through the Rolodex of memories, trying to find the one thing that'll keep you alive.
Exactly.
Because
What
there's,
can we do? And there's
yeah, I've read that
nothing.
too.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll only experience it one time.
Mm, that's wild. Life is wild. Talk about death. Living is crazy.
Yeah. I think we should all just try to enjoy this time that we have in the way that you see is like best. I think if it's just having a good time or just whatever it is, I think we should figure out like what makes us happy and chase our happiness.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Mm.
So tell me, I want to hear more about your thoughts though, because you're thinking as you're more of like a is it nihilism or
Yes.
oh none of this matters?
Yeah.
I want to hear more
I've
about
realized
your
I live
yeah.
somewhere in like the area of nihilism, or like, I don't know, maybe optimistic nihilism a little bit.
Mhm.
I don't know, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at lately. I've always kind of been a negative Nancy. I've had
Mhm.
depression, like clinical depression, since I was real young, and so
Mhm.
I think that it is nihilism in its current state, or how I am now, but that's not necessarily like, I know that's not necessarily the healthiest way to live, or even like the correct
Mhm.
way of thinking. Truly, like, I
Right.
don't think nothing matters, but it comforts me to tell myself that nothing matters. Um,
Tell me more about that.
I don't know.
What does work
I
for you?
think I react to my own like lack of control, or lack of ability to like help other people, or to make other people's lives better. Like, I dedicated my career. I've been in education and nonprofit for my whole career,
Mhm.
making $0 for doing impossible work under terrible systems. And that's because I feel this like immense pressure and guilt in having so little ability to help people, or to make things okay for people, to give other people space to have fun and play and be safe and comfortable and healthy, and
Mhm.
have a family or have a community. And so I
Yeah.
think nihilism is kind of my sort of crutch to get past that feeling and feel a little bit less like personal responsibility for making other people's lives better, because I do think people are good under like good circumstances. I don't think people
Of
are
course.
are
Yeah.
bad without being pounded into being a bad person. So,
Yeah.
and I think the world does pound people into submission in a lot of ways. And that sounded horrible. um,
No, it's true. Yeah. Bad people are bad,
yeah.
and they have their reasons for being that way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been a
Yeah.
long, 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 long cycle that takes a lot, a lot, a lot,
Mhm.
a lot, a lot of people and a lot of work
Exactly. Yeah.
to make better.
This is them coping with what they've had to deal with.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
for a long time. So I think nihilism is kind of my way of like letting go of some of the pressure and telling myself like, it's okay that you can't save that many people, but it also is like a double-edged sword, because then I get burnt out. I feel like I can't make a difference in anybody's life. I feel like that's part of why it's so hard to have a community, a really strong, solid community in, frankly, America, because we all just
Mhm.
tell ourselves, like, I can't do anything about that, or like things like my vote doesn't count, or, whatever. But
Yeah.
we're so like macroscopic on what we think we need to be spending our time on, when we should be looking smaller. We should be looking next door and at our communities, at our towns, at our cities, at just our extended families, and how that can how the ways we can make an impact there with the systems that are in place. So I don't know. I think nihilism is the word of where it is, but I can talk myself out of it pretty easily. But then I then I just kind of start to spiral about, if I'm the only optimist, then what's the point?
I'm not sure because I feel like what you're describing is slightly different. So what I'm hearing from you is that you have such a strong desire to help those around you and be this force of good in the world, but you know you can't do everything. So you do what you can, and what you are unable to do, you're just you just think to yourself, "Oh, well, I don't have control over that anyway." Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have an overabundance of empathy. That's what multiple therapists have told me.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
been the doormat in many a relationship, and
Yeah. I
even in my
I get that.
career.
Yeah.
Um
Mhm. Yeah.
and so I think, yeah, like I have a healthy perspective of what I can and can't control in life, and I have a healthy
Okay.
understanding of the systems I'm working in, and the shortcomings of people and of myself. And at the same time, I can tell myself, I'm doing little bits of good where I can, as much as I can, and it's never gonna be enough. And also, we're all gonna die anyway. In like a bummer way, not necessarily in like this really beautiful way that it sounds like you're describing, but maybe we're describing the same thing and I'm just depressed.
I do feel you are describing it in a way that's I'm not sure how that's unhealthy because from what I'm hearing, you're just trying to do what you can, and what you can't you just accepted that you have no control over that.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
feel like that's healthy though.
Yeah, and I've therapized. I've been in therapy to get to this point. So where I'm at is fine. I think where I'm not okay with where I'm at is just that I tend to lean more when I'm really frustrated and tired. I automatically go to kind of a lost cause fallacy. Just that, like, in that moment where I'm broken down, I do switch over and say, like, I don't think people are good. Everybody's stupid. This is awful. I give up. I throw my hands up pretty easily. So I think that's where I would like to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more
I see.
optimistic about people. Because while it's easy for me to say, like, I think people are good, that's easier said right now, filming a podcast about feelings and Dungeons and Dragons, than it is when I'm knee deep in really long, awful insurance paperwork for a family who just wants help. So I think, I think where I lean more nihilistic than anything is that, like, I think too highly, or I think that the systems in place are too powerful for anybody to fix at this point. I think that's where I'm feeling negatively.
I understand now.
Yeah.
You feel okay. So sometimes you're trying to do what you can, but sometimes you just feel completely and utterly helpless, and then you're like, oh, what does it matter anyway? Like,
Yeah.
this is all bullshit.
Yes. Yeah. And that leads to burnout
Okay.
pretty easily.
Okay, I understand now. Yeah, I think it's a balance, really. So I can tell you the way that I usually process things, which is also not healthy. Okay, because I think just anything taken to the extreme has pros and cons. So I am someone who's, I would say, detrimentally optimistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what'll happen is if I encounter an obstacle, I will just pivot to try to overcome the obstacle, right? But I will continue pivoting even when a normal person could see that the situation is helpless, but it's very hard for me to see that.
Mm. Okay.
And so the way that I get burnt out is that I will continue pivoting.
You are tenacious.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, the good thing is that I have a lot of grit. I can continue. I'm really good at pivoting. I can always try to find a solution. And I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. We can still make it work. But it's definitely not working. It's not gonna work. I need someone to be like, no. It's not.
You are prone to sticking to your guns and going until you reach the desired effect. And nothing will stop you. And there is no other option.
Yeah. And that sounds really good, but in practice sometimes it's really sad because I burn myself out. I use all my resources. It's just like that one time when I burned all my resources trying to, like, jump over like a 10-foot like crevice or like a ravine in
Yes.
that cave, remember?
Yes. And all
It's just like
along,
that.
you could have just fallen. You could have let yourself fall down and you would have continued the adventure from a different place and you would have found a whole different part of the map. But instead, you burnt everything. Everything, because there was one outcome you were gonna make it across.
Yeah, I was like, don't worry, I got this.
You believed in yourself too hard for too long. Made for a great D&D game, but I could see how that would be really difficult to live with in real life.
Yeah, exactly. It
Mm.
has its pros and cons in certain, like, different situations. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Very different perspectives, but the same outcome.
Yeah, I think you need, like, an appropriate level of, like, optimism, but also know when
Yeah, realism.
you truly are powerless and it's just time to move on.
Yeah. I think we both need to get to realism. I'm a pessimist, you're an optimist. We both need to get to reality. Both about ourselves and about the world around us.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we have a therapy podcast.
Yeah. And then next session we'll invite a therapist.
Yes.
We'll talk about all of our drama.
It's about time the feelings get real. Oh my God. Okay. So that's wild. Thinking about D&D, like, do you have like hangups? Like you've said that like you're okay with your character dying, you're okay with totally random death. Do you have any hangups about like a really gruesome death, or even like being close to death, like being dismaimed, being disfigured? You know, how much are you willing to let a DM torture your character physically?
I am 100% prepared for anything to happen. So Seraphina did get the devil's tongue.
She sure did.
I thought when you gave her the forked tongue, I thought she was just gonna have 24/7 snake tongue.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm ready.
That was the plan when I thought it was gonna be someone else. But I was like, I don't want to force this upon her.
It's gonna be so funny because she's just like,
She's so pretty, but has a forked tongue.
it'd be so hilarious. It's like she opens her mouth like, ah.
We are slowly indoctrinating Seraphina into like an emo punk rock era. Oh, that would be incredible.
I'm fully prepared for any physical change.
Good to
I'm
know.
not attached to her appearance.
Good to know.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, I haven't planned much in terms of the campaign, or yeah, I'm not attached to the way that she looks at all. I will say the only thing I did think about, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, but I have thought about it, is that she does dye her hair blonde. I
Mhm.
was thinking at some point during the campaign that she would stop dyeing her hair, and it would signify some sort of acceptance in herself.
I adore
I,
that. I adore that so much.
yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen or if it will happen, but I had thought about
Yeah.
that as like a symbol
Yeah, we've talked
of
about that.
her. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sort of a it's almost like a coming of age moment, sort of like a recognition of self, or
Exactly.
like an acceptance of self, or even like
Yeah.
there's so many different things you can symbolize with like a fashion choice or a change
Exactly. Yeah.
of outward appearance. That is, I love that kind of storytelling, so I'm so glad that's something you've always had in mind for Seraphina. And it's so
Yeah.
how she would tell her own story. It's how she would describe
Yeah.
things, because she's pretty, although she's so friendly and so appearingly forthcoming, she is like such a closed book. She's pretty like
Yeah.
she doesn't give anything away. She hasn't yet, to the rest of the party or to strangers or barely even to Ados.
I know. I feel like I'm trying to find ways to have her open up and try to come up with situations. So I'll have to try to force those conversations or just like introduce some situations that would make her very uncomfortable so she can have an opportunity to reveal more about herself.
Yeah. And I mean, I am not complaining that you haven't yet. Like, it's such a cool character choice. Like, even if I don't even know if that's a choice you've specifically made for her. And if I know you like have said before that like role playing is kind of one of your growth points that you want to work on. And so I don't know how
Yeah.
much of that is purposeful that you've been playing her so close to the chest, but you did start her. You wrote her as a girl with some secrets. You wrote her as a girl
Exactly.
who is not going to be very forthcoming, even though she's going to appear to be very forthcoming. Like, she is very open about her kinks. So people think that
Yeah.
they understand her and that they like know her secrets, and that she's not hiding anything, obviously. But there are lines that Seraphina has drawn, and I think it's such a cool character choice and a very cool like just thing to play with long term, because everybody else has started to come out of their shell. It's kind of nice to see the opposite, see
Yeah.
someone who's going to take a little bit more effort and a little bit
Yeah,
more
I feel
time.
like Bulla is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
She's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, and she's always coming up with little clever ways to like evade questions or turn the conversation away from herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I love that, like, the dynamics in the group that have formed and how you've all started to open up together. It's been such a satisfying first arc. First of all, can we celebrate? We are between Act 1 and Act 2 of Dion Rising. That's freaking crazy.
Yay!
It's a pivot point, baby. I'm gonna kill the mule.
No. Oh my gosh, Royal would just rage quit.
We'd never see Royal again. He'd have to cope by going and buying a real life mule.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, death is a part of the game in D&D, man. It just is. And I've never played with someone who said, like, no, don't kill me. And if I did, I don't think I would have them at my table. I'd be like, no, that takes out a pivotal part of the game. Literally hit points. You can die.
But so tell me more about people who have boundaries about like physical appearance of damage on their body.
Yeah, like
I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I have another player who told me right off the bat that they were not okay with their character being disfigured or maimed or dismembered in any way, or even like scarred for personal reasons. And I said, done. Like I don't have to do anything that would do that kind of damage, or you know, we can narrate our way around that stuff so that it doesn't happen if that's something that's a red flag. And you know, luckily that person knew themselves enough that it came up long before the campaign started. So and they brought it up themselves. Yeah. I've never done something to a character or to a party that someone was upset or shocked about yet. I haven't been DMing for like that long.
Yeah.
And I mostly DM for close friends and family. So I already know many of their boundaries. Like many of their big no-nos are also my big no-nos, which aren't very many. Like we're all here. We're all also very mentally healthy and stable and know we're playing a game. And and we don't want to do like evil, awful, gross things to each other.
Yeah.
Or to someone else, even if it's in imaginary land. We're just not that kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while I will
Have you ever
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, while I will try and kill my friends, I'm not gonna try and do unthinkable. I'm not gonna do war crimes.
We'll reference the Geneva Convention.
I play with too many lawyers. I really do. I have so many games where I play with a lawyer, and they always get me. I have one party that's literally like writing a business plan for a spice trade that they've started. It's ridiculous. They have so much money. They found so many ways to game the system. That's my very strategic group. I have to throw all the level 20 monsters at them to even make a dent.
That's so funny.
They're so good at playing D&D.
They're min-maxing and also playing Monopoly.
Yes. Yes, they literally own multiple properties. Wild.
Have you ever had a character who was really badly maimed or scarred?
I have a character who like is in the heat of battle all the time, and like I don't think it's like been narrated that she has specific scars, but like she is just like a scarred, beat up kind of character. Yeah. I've never played someone who was like maimed or like disabled or dismembered or anything like that yet, but I'd be down. I'd be open to it. I like the storytelling of it all. So if you're someone who gets into big old crazy fights and scrapes, it would make sense that eventually you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I think I like the stakes of it. I think I like that you're seeing a physical representation of a story beat on someone's body. So I do think that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking about, like with Seraphina, it's going to be stopping dyeing her hair, but with other people, it's like, I have this nasty scar that like NPCs notice across my face, and I have a very specific reason I got that scar and a story that goes along with it. That's great storytelling. It's like just visible storytelling. It's like we're playing an imaginary game, but we still have costuming and sets, and it's still a visually appealing game, just in your imagination.
Yeah.
So
that'll be interesting if Seraphina gets scarred.
That'd be very interesting to see how she would react, or how people would react to her differently when she's not perfect lady anymore. I think another thing I wanted to ask you, have you ever played with a group who were like just murderous as hell, like serial killers, fine with burning down the village as long as it got them some money. Like even just aligned evil. Have you ever played a party like that where the DM just
I
let you all
have
like free reign to kill?
I have never been in a party like that. Usually, so my other D&D group, I think just the characters that they play, I feel like they're just too good. They're just too good-hearted.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that they would take pleasure in that. And when we play
Yeah.
campaigns, everybody's very goody two-shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and all my friends want to be the heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like we're all people pleasers. So we're
Yeah,
not gonna do stuff that would make the
exactly.
village mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So me either, but I think it'd be it's a very different way to play. I don't think it'd be fun for me, but I could see why it would be fun. Like there's renegade versions of video games. So I guess it's the same people who do that want to play an evil party and do the bad things and be the bad guy. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
But when it comes to killing monsters, I'm gonna kill monsters and I'm gonna do it awesome.
Yeah, and also NPCs apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty scary too.
Yep. Sometimes just your average Joe neighbor who you like and who brings you milk every Tuesday can get eaten by a werewolf. Who could know? You never know. It's a crazy big world out there. There's a reason we have monster fighters and adventurers and people whose job it is to keep the monsters at bay. Bad things happen to
Yeah.
good people all the time, especially in this era.
Yeah, we got attached to those snails, Petunia and Go-Go, like after the fact. That's never happened to me before where I grew emotionally attached to something after.
You felt like regret after killing someone.
Like, wait a minute.
I think
These
that
snails have families.
that was such an accidental moment that turned so good so fast. I love the way people's brains works. I could never have predicted that you guys would ask for their names first of all, or that just the simple names would make you all go no.
It's so adorable.
I couldn't have planned it better, but I love that about this game. I love that about humans. Like that's why I think people are good. Is that all I had to do was say their names or Go-Go and Petunia, and you all had a visceral reaction. That's how I know people are good. We have a mule named Mjolnir, and even Zada had to say, wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's a cool little guy.
I'm scared. I'm scared for this meal now because I'm scared of how Zada's gonna react.
I need to offer you guys some mule armor for him.
Exactly.
You guys are fighting bigger and better bosses. He's gonna get caught in the crosshair eventually.
No.
Especially if Zada is always the one walking next to him. Zada is a hit magnet.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I will not say the donkey is doomed. He is not my plot turn point like the guy that the other group loved.
Okay. We're not getting attached to him.
No, I'm not doing it on purpose. He really was a last minute, oh, I guess, yeah, here's the mule. He was not planned. However, I now know the power he holds, and that's dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dangerous for him and for everybody involved.
Wisely.
Yes. I'm gonna need to come up with something real good if I bring him in. I love people. We form such attachments to such fake things, such cute little made up imaginary things.
Yeah.
What do you think? If you were a DM, how much would you I always joke about how like, oh, I'm gonna kill you all today. I'm almost never serious. I almost never think I'm actually gonna kill you all. I try, I really do. I give you guys some hard monsters, but I'm not good at balancing encounters. But if you were a DM, do you think you'd have the cojones to try and kill the party? Or do your best to kill at least someone in a battle?
So I wouldn't purposefully make an encounter unbalanced. I would try to make it level appropriate. But if I saw that someone was going to die, I would not put my thumb on the scale. I would let it happen. I would be like my friend.
Yeah.
Who DMs. He's just like, that it is what it is.
Yep, it's the roll of the dice.
I'm not gonna intervene. it's gonna happen. So I would, yeah, I would let it happen.
What do you think the party would have done moving forward if Sada had died? Do you think you all would have gone through the portal and left him? Would you have dragged his body through the portal? What do you think Sarah, I guess you can't predict what the other party players would do, but what do you think Seraphina would have done or suggested going forward?
Oh my goodness.
Keeping in mind that it was right before he went through the portal and met the devil.
A hot devil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's my question. Would it be I would see him dead and the portal would close?
Yeah, I guess you were on the other side of the portal already, weren't you? When he was about to go down?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on what the rest of the party did. Like, I didn't know if he died in that moment, if they would have tried to drag his body through and still try to get through. The fight would have kept going. The rest of the party wasn't through the portal yet.
Yeah. I would want to find a solution, kind of like the necromancy solution that you mentioned. That's something that I would propose to the group.
Yeah, and that would be pretty in line with Seraphina as a character.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know about
just
her.
Be like, what are the options?
Yeah. Yeah. She's like not trying to let him rest in peace. She's like, no, he can't be dead. We got things to do.
I guess I would try to really think about Sada because I have to say the way that he navigates his life, it makes me feel like he wants to die.
In like glorious battle.
Yes, he wants to have like a glorious death.
Yeah. Would you be robbing him? Would the party rob him of that?
Yeah,
if they were to try and bring him back. Age-old question.
Yeah.
That would have been fun to play out.
Just like, yeah. Yeah, it just reminds me of like Vikings and like he wants to go to Valhalla.
Yeah. He does worship the goddess of war.
Yeah. It just has that feeling where he just wants to die in battle.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's made it pretty clear. I think he's answered like, yeah, if I die, I die. At least I died fighting for what I believe. Cool.
Yeah, so I think part of me also just wants to like respect his wishes. Just like, maybe we should just let it go.
Let him die. Give him a nice, burn him on a pyre, send him out into a lake on a canoe, and then light it on fire with a flaming arrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That'd be beautiful. Yeah, things have definitely taken a turn for you guys going forward, so keep this all in mind.
Yeah. Do you think you would have death conversations individually with everyone now that the stakes are kind of rising?
I think I should. I think I have had like very preliminary conversations with everybody back when they were creating characters. About like the possibility of them dying and what their boundaries there kind of would look like, but it was very brief or like pretty casual conversation. So I think now would definitely be the point where I have to say like, hey y'all, you've now witnessed how serious things have gotten.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit me with if you know, but see what's even the point of the conversation, because I think everybody does not understand that this is a game where you can go down to 0 HP and die. And we've all kind of had the conversation about, so I don't want to necessarily rehash something or have someone say, no, I'm not okay with my character dying, when I, as a DM, am not willing to let them be invincible. You know what I mean?
Well, I think even within that segment of a spectrum, I do think there are different perspectives. Like, I think I'm on the further end of the spectrum where I think if it happens, it happens, even if it's just, oh, I just got poisoned.
Right.
I just fall over and die.
Yeah, you're fine with me taking narrative leaps in that case.
Yeah, whereas I think the other end of this narrow spectrum is, oh, you want a meaningful narrative death.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true, and I can figure out where on that spectrum each of the players falls. That's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So so I think that's important, so someone doesn't feel unsatisfied.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to say it again. You'd make a great DM. You should try it sometime. Here I am learning from you like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to have that conversation. You've never DM'd before. I love this game. You learn so many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a conversation I will be having with each of the players individually, especially since we're on this small winter break. It's about that time that we all kind of rehash our expectations of the campaign and see if anybody's plan for their characters changed. Because I kind of know the growth that people want their characters to go through, but
Yes.
circumstances have changed and they didn't know. You all didn't know when you wrote your characters what the world was going to look like or what you were all going to go through together, or how your how your characters were going to learn from each other or not learn from each other. So, yeah.
I do have a question because I kind of wonder, let's say someone does die and they make a new character.
Mhm.
How much freedom or leeway would you give someone to make the new character? Because I feel like a lot of the world and the story so far was built around the characters that we started with. So would you allow that same level of freedom for the new character?
I think, like every other question, it's different for my home games as it is for Dion Rising. So for Dion Rising, I think what I would have happen is that the secondary character would be adjacent or have like some level of connection to the original character. Like, I think I would encourage
Sada's brother.
I think I would encourage you to pick someone from your backstory, like Zada's brother, or make up a person like who's not in the backstory we've all established, but decide that this person maybe has heard of your character even, or like went to the same school as them, or like I think they would need some like 7 levels of connection to your character, and that way. And they would, have an incentive to come join the party where they're at. They would already have like this adjacency to the power level that you guys have, because it's hard to just justify, here's another super strong person that's been running around this whole time and is just going to immediately join in the party for no apparent reason and is a stranger. I think that is hard, especially in a narrative and relationship driven game. So I think for the story's sake, I think it'd be most interesting and fun for you all to kind of bring in a character who has something to do with your original.
Yeah.
But that's a lot more. That is like me putting big guardrails up that I normally would absolutely not. Normally I'd say like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like we can work out their backstory to fit in with the world that exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a big world, only parts of which we've even began to touch on.
Okay.
So in normal games, it would be rails off. Like as long as it's not going to break the game, I'm cool with it. But in this game, I think I'd want to keep it in the family, so to speak.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Oh my gosh. Now that I think about it, I will let you know, I am obsessed with Zata's lion love.
You have been since Dark Down. That'd be so good. See, that'd be so tasty.
The party. It's so beautiful.
You would get
more beautiful.
It'd be really, really wonderful because you guys would get such like a good like background drop that you never got while he was alive. Like you would be able to like kind of like get some closure on the Zada story or on whoever's story. Like it would be able to like keep that all the investment that you've put into each other. Yes. It wouldn't just throw it away because we didn't get to the end of their character arc or whatever. It would allow that story to kind of keep going and be even more touching or emotional. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, just made that up on the spot, but that's what we're doing.
Do it. Wouldn't it be nice?
It would. Or like if for any of you, like someone from Killian's background would be fascinating. Another person from Cordia or someone else who knows his like family's history and I just think, and it would also keep you all from feeling like I said, it would keep you all from losing the investment you've put in with each other's characters. It would also keep you from losing all the time and investment you put in your character backstories and learning about their regions and their religion and their family structure and their governmental structures. A lot of you guys have like very long lists and paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of writing that we've all developed over time about your characters. So I don't want to throw any of that away in a campaign like this because it's all so juicy.
I know. I feel like it would be a way for us to reveal the story that you had planned out in an indirect way.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's still satisfying. Like we still learn about the character.
Yeah.
tied.
Yeah. Even if it's just like peripherally, even if that backstory,
Exactly, yeah.
at least you get the answer to some of the questions, maybe not all of them,
Yeah.
but some of them.
Yeah, it can still feel satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah. Satisfying. Yeah. So knowing now what you know about me and my perspective as a DM on death and as a D&D player on death, what would you do going forward as Seraphina? What do you think? Has this changed how you'll play Dion Rising?
I don't think so. I think I tried very hard. As I said, role playing is a growth point, but I do try to make decisions as Seraphina. And if those decisions have consequences, then they have consequences. And I think that's what makes it fun for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we already know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing another session 0 with every player, specifically about the possibility of death. And I'm going to kill Mjolnir.
Now it's time to traumatize the player character. Now that you're all invested.
Now that we're all here. Thank you for playing. Here's some traumatic shit. You're welcome. I'm a great DM. I've said before, if I don't make someone cry in this campaign, I will have failed. And I think that's a good way to get all 6 of you at once. Mostly thought.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you all so much for listening. We hope you leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Check us out on Knights of D20's content at our link tree in the description, including Dion Rising, which airs live every Monday night, 8 Eastern Time and 7 Central on Twitch.
Thank you guys.
Good day.
Bye.